Welcome, everybody, to another edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton, and we are in Week 12 of the NFL season. Giants are 2-9, still waiting for that bye week to take a breath. It has not happened. We've seen Brian Daboll get fired. We've seen Malik Neighbors go out with a season-ending ACL injury. We've seen Cam Skattebo get into a brawl with the WWE. And I don't know, I watched WWE. It was the brawl after Raw that ended the show. That was really more of a brawl. What Cam Skattebo did was a little pushing and shoving. I've seen more of that, more than that, in the stands of Don Bosco Bergen Catholic. So the reality is it's been a long season so far for the New York Giants and keeps on going. All right, so where we're at, we just got back from practice Wednesday inside the field house. This will be our last show of the week. I'll be heading to Detroit, and then obviously we'll be trying to do a post-game show from Ford Field on Sunday night. What I can tell you is that Jackson Dart is going to start on Sunday. I've been reporting it. I've had stories the last couple days on NorthJersey.com. I told you Sunday night about what would have to happen this week. So here's the deal. Jackson Dart is participating in practice right now. It's technically phase 4 of the 5-step concussion protocol. And what that means is the first 3 phases are all done with the training staff. It's about symptoms. It's about working out, getting up his aerobic exercise activity, football-related activities through the first 3, and then you see where the symptoms are. Symptoms are a go. That's why it was important for him to be out there last Friday. He was at the stadium on Sunday on the sideline. That obviously is another sign. So today, Jackson Dart is going to get most, if not all, the first-team reps. He's a non-contact participant, but there is a catch. The catch is for all positions other than quarterback and the specialist, but we'll put them to the side. They wear non-contact jerseys. So when you see the quarterbacks in practice and they're wearing red jerseys, and I know a lot of you Giants fans are hoping for those red jerseys, not century red, the red jerseys that the Eli Manning Giants wore and did not perform very well in, but maybe that changes if they were to come back. That's not happening right now. But in reality, when they wear those red jerseys, they are non-contact participants in practice. So what that means is if you're a wide receiver and you're in non-contact practice, you can't participate with the first-team offense because there is some contact in practice. And that's not the case with the quarterback. So when the Giants line up today and go through their full non-contact practice, Jackson Dart can be the first-team quarterback because he's not at risk for any contact. So I would expect Jackson Dart to have a full practice today, even though he may be limited because, again, whenever we get the injury report that comes out every week, I always tell you that what I've learned through the years is limited has layered meanings on the injury report. If a player is a limited participant, that could mean the injury popped up during practice and they could not finish. It means they may have really pulled back and he was only participating in some. Or the true meaning of limited is if the player takes any fewer snaps than what he normally would in his capacity, he has to be listed as limited. So if Jackson Dart in his position is taking every first-team rep on a normal week, and now Jackson Dart might be giving up a handful of first-team reps to Jameis Winston, then he has to be listed as limited. So that's what I would expect today. If you don't see Jackson as a full participant on the injury report, that's just a matter of semantics, of trying to follow the rules, quote-unquote, and not get fined. We saw what happened to the Ravens and Lamar Jackson a couple weeks back when they listed him as full, even though he only ran the scout team. That's where we're at. So what I think is going to happen is that Jackson Dart will be a full participant in practice today. He'll run the first team. Then tomorrow, he wakes up, see how he's feeling. If he has no symptoms, then he'll have a full practice tomorrow. Then he will go meet with the independent neurological consultant that's assigned to the Giants in concussion protocol. And then if all things are well, Dart will get cleared. Now, while he's in concussion protocol, that's from now until he gets that clearance from the independent neurologist, he cannot speak to the media. So don't expect to see Jackson Dart Wednesday, Thursday. Friday is when Jackson Dart will talk to the media, if all goes well. And I believe he will start on Sunday. I think Jameis Winston will be the backup. I think Russell Wilson will be the third team. Now, if any reason that Jackson Dart does not clear concussion protocol, then I think you'll see Jameis Winston as the starter, Russell Wilson as the backup, and then Jackson Dart will have another week off. I don't expect that to happen. So I've had some people ask me, why do they put players through this? Well, the teams do not want to come out and say a player is going to clear concussion protocol until he actually clears concussion protocol. If Africa came out today and said, we think Jackson will clear concussion protocol, and then he comes out tomorrow morning and he wakes up and he has a little bit of a headache, they've got to determine if that's concussion related, if it's he slept wrong. So it's to protect the player from himself. It's to protect the team from themselves and not give off the perception that happened on the Thursday night game against the Eagles. Yes, as I said the other night, that did happen this season. That Giants win over the Eagles on Thursday night feels like maybe it was 3 seasons ago. That actually happened in October, which was last month here at MetLife. And the Giants have not won since. Remember Jackson Dart was excellent that night against the Eagles, and Cam Scatterbo had 3 touchdowns and tore his shirt off, foreshadowing what was going to happen on Monday Night Raw at the Garden on Monday night. I kid. But that's kind of where we're at. So I've told you, as soon as Jackson Dart clears, he plays. That's because he's not having any symptoms. Mike Kafka reiterated that this morning when we met with him. So that's where we're at for that. And look, it's not going to be an easy game on Sunday. And I think if you're a Giants fan, I know if you're someone who covers the Giants like me, I want to see Jackson Dart against this Lions team. I don't want him to expose himself and put him out there on the field, exposed for hits and things of that nature. But you want to see how he grows as a quarterback. And I think this last week and a half has kind of taught Jackson Dart a lot. I'm eager to talk to him and find out what his lessons are. He's learned about the business aspect of it, how the person who's been most vocal about believing in Jackson Dart here with the Giants is no longer in that job and no longer with the organization, and Brian Daboll. That doesn't mean that Brian Daboll was the only one. I think that's important to stress. I think there are a lot of people in this building who believe in Jackson Dart as the franchise quarterback. A couple other tidbits today. No Kayvon Thibodeau again. No Paulson Adebo. So I would imagine that kind of dims the mood as far as their availability this week. Couple returnees. Darius Slayton will work on the side. We'll see if he's back with his hamstring. Eric Gray, remember him? He will have the 21-day practice window open for him. He was on the PUP list, PUP active for this, or PUP reserve, all the way going back to the summer. So we'll see where Eric Gray is, and does he factor in, and can he be active? I know there are a lot of fans of Turbo Miller out there trying to figure out, why is Eric Gray going to get an opportunity before Turbo Miller? Look, I talked to Turbo, and I've talked to people around Turbo the last couple of weeks. He's satisfied with what he's showing in practice. He wants to be out there on the field, active on game day, obviously. But It just hasn't happened to this point. So he's got to keep doing what he's doing behind the scenes and see if that opportunity comes before the end of the season. But look, I think it's just a matter of having another body there at running back with Eric Gray. We'll see if Eric Gray gets a uniform on Sunday and has an opportunity here. But the way Motor Singletary and Tyrone Tracy have performed, I don't know necessarily if that's going to happen immediately against the Lions on Sunday. So watching the Lions on Monday night, I don't think you can take much from that game. Sunday night against the Eagles. The weather was crappy. Jared Goff looked awful. I would imagine that Lions team gets a huge boost from being back home. I've been in that building in Ford Field. It's going to be very loud. And I think the Lions are going to be flying all over the place. I'd feel good about the offensive line after what they did against Green Bay. And I think from this point forward, you've got to trust your players and trust your medical staff. And I don't believe in the idea that Jackson Dart has to sit for the rest of the season. What is there to gain? There's a lot to gain with playing Jackson Dart. Just think of it this way. If Jackson Dart hadn't played up until this point, everybody would be screaming about why haven't they played Jackson Dart. So you can't say there's nothing to be gained in one breath, and then on the other hand, say, I can't believe we're not seeing Jackson Dart. So, again, football is a risky game. You need to be smart. If he has concussion symptoms related to the first concussion that he had, he's not going to be cleared by the third-party neurologist. It's not going to happen. So when he's cleared, you have to trust that medical situation, and you have to trust that we're going to play Jackson. Maybe you call plays a little differently, be a little smarter, maybe not put him in harm's way, stress that to him, continue to stress that to him. But at the end of the day, the 22-year-old rookie quarterback is your future. You need to protect that future, but you also want to see it. You also want to progress to the point, like the Patriots did with Drake May last year, get to a point where you have the trust in the player that he's going to do the right thing. And I think that, more than anything else, would be a huge step forward for Jackson Dart and the Giants going into this weekend. The Abdul Carter situation, when I last talked to you, the All-In audience on Sunday night, I told you it was related to a walkthrough. We have more details. I've gotten more details. And I kind of stayed out of the fray in terms of trying to report the he said situation that transpired over the last 48 hours. The bottom line is Abdul Carter missed a 15-minute walkthrough that Mike Kafka installed. It was the first one on Friday. Carter says he was getting treatment that was on his own, that wasn't scheduled. It was in the red light therapy room. New York Post reported that. I've since confirmed that. Whether or not he had fallen asleep or if he was in the therapy room, he missed the walkthrough, period. So however he missed it, it's a little weird when it first came out because you'd say, well, if he's in an area where teammates are going to see him or coaches are going to see him, why didn't they just send somebody to go get him? Nobody realized that he was in that therapy room, in the therapy area. So Mike Kafka felt as though he needed to discipline him. They disciplined him the first series on Sunday afternoon. I told you what I felt about that discipline. If you felt the need to discipline him for the entire first quarter. That didn't happen. Carter's owned up on it. There's only so many times you can say it. You cannot legislate what's happened the last 3 months here and said, well, Brian Dable didn't do this and didn't do that and all that stuff. All that stuff is hearsay at this point, to me. Brian Dable's not here. So let's not all of a sudden want to legislate Brian Dable's tenure here and use Abdul Carter as a pawn. Don't do that. Abdul Carter had a very public shaming. It was on the back pages of the tabloids, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for a guy who gives everything he has in practice and during a game. Yes, he has not produced the way he wanted, the way the Giants fans wanted, and now all of a sudden he's being called a bust. You want to see how Abdul Carter comes out of that. I hope to see Abdul Carter on Sunday wreck the game. I'm not sure if he's at that position right now, but I would like to see it, especially if Kayvon Thibodeau is not in the game again on Sunday. Go out there and make some things happen, Abdul. You know, I don't look at your season the way some other people see it. I see you've produced. I see you've taken some sacrifices, especially early in the year, running games with Brian Burns up front. Brian Burns getting sacks and taking advantage of attention that was given to Abdul Carter. People forget about that. You don't see that nationally. You're talking about how Abdul Carter now is Defensive Rookie of the Year. His odds have plummeted. I saw that. Look, the bottom line is Abdul Carter is a key piece to this foundation and its future. You've got to do what you got to do for this team. And I think that's important to go forward with the Giants and see. You got to get Abdul Carter going. Like, I didn't envision this when I said that last week, that priority A was Jackson Dart. Priority B is making sure that Abdul Carter does not fade into the background. And the fact that right now people are kind of going back and forth about where Abdul Carter is, I just want to see the kid finish out the year strong because I believe in him as a player. I think he's he's not a player who's going to chum up to you in the locker room and sidle up, and not yet. That's not his personality. But it's a lot easier to attack a guy like that out there when he's not out there smiling and, all that stuff. I mean, I'm going to say this. There's a big difference between Dexter Lawrence and Evan Neal, okay? We all know that. Production-wise, it's a world of difference. But if Dexter Lawrence was the one that had come out and talked about flipping burgers and still performed, and Evan Neal was the one who danced and smiled and still didn't perform, you would have more fans and more media defend Evan Neal and say, give him a chance, than you would Dexter Lawrence, who would be viewed as somebody who said, we'll let the fans go flip burgers. So I hope you understand that point of what I'm trying to make, is that sometimes players' reputations are created by media and fans based on how they talk and interact with media and fans. And more players are developing that skill to deal with fans out there and to create a perception of them as a fan. Abdul Carter doesn't play. Abdul Carter is not going on podcasts. Abdul Carter is not talking to reporters in the locker room around big crowds and laughing and joking. Abdul Carter, as I told you this summer, he is no nonsense. He missed a walkthrough because he screwed up. You can't do that. He knows that. He owned up to it. If he's continually missing meetings and showing up late to things, the Giants need to corral that. But don't tell me what you didn't do in October. Take care of it now. And if Abdul Carter legitimately had the type of season that was portrayed over the last 48 hours, where he's been missing meetings and showing up late and all that stuff, then shame on the Giants for only disciplining him for 6 plays on Sunday. Don't plant your flag in the accountability realm if this guy has a past that now finally caught up to him. I don't care how desperate you are for a win. But that's not the case. Abdul Carter works hard in practice. Abdul Carter, sure. Look at Brian Burns and what he said a couple weeks ago in one of the social media videos about his teammates. It was with Victor Cruz in the players, I think it's the players lounge that they do, Giants.com. And it was, give me one word about your teammates. And Brian Burns said annoying for Abdul Carter. He's a rookie. That's just the way it is. And Abdul Carter, if he starts producing on the field, there's going to be a lot less of this discussion off the field about what he's not doing and this idea that he's a bust. Back off on that right now. I'm telling you. He may not become the player that I thought he was going to be this summer, But I haven't given up on that idea yet. Abdul Carter is a special talent. It's up to the Giants and it's up to Abdul Carter to get it out of him. And I think he's working towards that. So we'll see where that happens as he grows, not only in this team, but in this franchise and in the league. Last thing before I go, Cam Scatterbo, that stuff with the WWE on Monday night, I loved it. I was watching on Netflix. Didn't see it during commercials. You only saw it on social media. Everybody's got to take a chill pill. I understand being nervous about Cam Scatterbo. He's progressing in his rehab. He would never put himself in harm's way. And if you watch all of the angles of that, he never put himself in harm's way. He never stepped beyond the barricade. He had a walking boot to protect his foot from his foot to his knee. That's how big of a walking boot he has. So this idea that Cam Scatterbo and Joe Shane should be fired because Cam Scatterbo shouldn't have been at Raw, come on. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, it's just, look, and I'll say this and then I'll wrap up. When you're 2-9 and you are what the Giants have been for too long, you're going to catch shrapnel no matter where it comes from. So yes, do you want to keep yourself out of those situations? Sure. But I'm not faulting Cam Scatterbo or any of the Giants on their off day. They were given off Monday by Mike Kafka. Going to WWE Raw, no one seemed to have a problem with Big Dom and Cooper DeJean, who were also there ringside at the Garden for the Eagles. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. The Eagles are defending Super Bowl champions, and they just beat the Lions on Sunday night. So and Cooper DeJean is not worried about an injury from a couple weeks ago. But I'm going to leave you with this because it's hard to explain the last 5 weeks. Think about where we've been, all in nation. The Giants beat the Eagles here, and all of a sudden everybody's thinking about competing in the playoffs. They go to Denver, the collapse. They lose that game. They end up going back to Philly, lose that game. Cam Scatterbo gets injured, out for the season. Then come back here, play the 49ers, lose that game. Everybody's jumping up and down. Go to Chicago. Jackson Dart gets a concussion, out for the game. Brian Dable gets fired the next day. Then Sunday here, tough game. They compete. They lose to the Green Bay Packers. 5 losses in a row. Think of all that's happened since the Giants beat the Eagles here on Thursday Night Football. That was not a fraud, a fluke. They beat the Eagles that night. The Giants are going to spend the next 5 months trying to figure out, you want a blueprint to how a season can collapse? That's what's happened. You can't tell me that Brian Dable's not sitting at home in North Jersey right now trying to figure out, retracing all of the steps. What could the Giants have done differently? What could they have done? The record ended up catching up to Brian Dable. 20-40-1. 3-19 in the last 22 games. It caught up to Brian Dable. But where this season went wrong, there's a lot of reasons for it. And a lot of culpability across the board. Make sure you check out NorthJersey.com. Every week, we're going to do it as a feature. I'm going to rank the top 6 head coaching candidates for the Giants and go week to week. Try to pick up as many tidbits as I can in reporting. What are other people saying? How are the coaches performing? Coach goes out like Jeff Hafley. His defense gives up 20 points to the Giants on Sunday. Does his stock go up or down? We're going to do that every week. And we're going to have that for fans because we know people want to read about the head coaching candidates. We're going to give you basically empty the notebook every week on what I know about the head coaching search, but do it in a fun format. So make sure you check that out on NorthJersey.com. We're going to put that out every Thursday, and we'll see about Thanksgiving. Might go Wednesday next week, but make sure you check that out. We'll be talking about it on future All-In episodes as we whittle down the season towards the coaching search. So for Paul Wood, I am Art Stapleton. We appreciate you being all in. Thanks for watching. We will catch you Sunday from Ford Field after the Giants and Lions, and hopefully Jackson Dart's return as the starting quarterback.